Welcome back to part 2 of the PvP series. As you can see, we're leaving off right where we were before, making the ground. I didn't place down the welcome map because I wanted to show you if you got beta content enabled, you will probably want to put down a CV2 welcome mat. And when you put down that CV2 welcome mat, we're just going to make this the default spawn point, so everyone will spawn here no matter where they're coming from. The spawn radius is where they're going to spawn or how far they're going to spawn. You can rename this to spawn if you want. You don't have to, unless you have multiple welcome mats. And yeah, there we go. So in this video, I am going to focus on custom events and making a start button for the game so we can start the game once we actually do get to the circuits. So as I said in the last video, we're just going to take everything with the gun and just place it down to the side somewhere. This is not really needed for now, so I'm just going to place it down right here. Let's make the platform a bit bigger so we have more room to work with. There we go. And now let's get on with the custom events. So we are going to get a event definition chip. And what the event definition chip does is the event definition chip is well, just like the description says, you can make your own custom events. Well, the description doesn't say that, but yeah, you can make your own custom event. So if I go in here and like I am going to make a custom start event, you're going to probably want to put start synced event. And basically what I mean start sync the game. Sorry, and you want to submit this. And basically what this does is this makes it so I can get a event receiver, and whenever I call my custom event, so let's say I have a button connected to my custom event, it is start sync game, so it will appear in the event receiver. So whenever I start to sync the game, this is the event receiver that will activate. And this is really useful in case you want to make a custom event like, I don't know, someone goes through a trigger zone and it will add one to a custom event. Let's say you want an animation to start when you go through a trigger zone. You can make it where you enter and the animation plays, but with the custom event, you can have it you know, just fire off with a custom event. Anyway, I'll explain more as we go along. We're going to want to copy this, and we are going to want to name this end sync the game. Of course, this is how we are going to end the sync the game when it starts, and I will get to this in the next one. So we are going to copy this one more time. I'm actually going to move these up a bit because this one will get kind of big. Okay, so I am going to spawn a trigger handle real quick to show you what we are going to do. So just don't spawn in trigger handle, do what I'm doing. So I'm just going to spawn this in, and if I edit inside the trigger handle and I get a event receiver and I place it in here, you're going to see a custom event, and the custom event is going to be called projectile something. Projectile. Wait, was it not in here? Oh, you need to put it in the projectile chip. I guess I didn't need to do that. Well, okay. Yeah, so go over to this projectile launcher for your gun, and when you put in a event receiver, you will see a custom, well, not a custom event, but you're going to see a new event that appears only when you place the event receiver into this chip. And the event is going to be called projectile hit player. Now, what this does is this will detect whenever a player is hit with a gun, and it takes the firing player, hit player, body part damage, and everything. So what we are going to do is we're not going to put the projectile hit player here. What we are going to do is we are going to remember these. So there's an execute here, firing player, projectile source, hit player, hit position, hit normal. And what we are going to do is memorize that chip. Just memorize it the best you can. We are going to go over here and we are going to rename this to projectile hit. And we are going to copy all the inputs. I'm just going to show you this so it's easier to follow along. So we obviously cannot put an execute. So we're just going to forget about the execute and start with the first one, which the first one is a player. So make the type player. The name of this is going to be firing player. So type in firing player and then add the property. And as you can see, the property is added here. And this makes it so when I do use a event receiver or event sender, it's going to have the inputs attached to it. So we're going to do the same with the rest. The projectile source. The projectile source is actually a Rec Room object. So put in the type as Rec Room object and then projectile source. Again, I'm doing this so you can easily follow along and have a point of reference besides doing it yourself. The next one is going to be another player. This is going to be the hit player. So go ahead and type in hit player with the type being player. Add the property. The next one is actually a int variable, and this one will be called body part. This detects what body part that you're hitting with the gun, so it does the proper amount of damage. The next int will actually be the damage, which will output the damage that the gun is doing to your health. We're going to add that property. And the last two are vector threes. I think the first one was hit position and the second one was hit normal. So make sure that this is hit position and the next one is hit normal, of course, with the type of vector 3. And after we do that, I will show you what this does. And now as you can see, we have all these. Now if I go ahead and get a event receiver, my custom event projectile hit will appear in the event receiver, and when I click on it, you'll see that it looks exactly the same as the one I spawned in this chip. The reason we did this is because you're not able to spawn that chip outside of this. You have to edit this and place a projectile chip in each gun. What you can see how that is not a great way to do it. What we are going to do is we are going to make a combat conversion custom event chip, well, player definition chip, that makes it so any gun in the room will follow this. So what we are going to do is we are going to copy this down. After we copy this down, we are going to name this combat conversion. combat conversion. And after we name that combat conversion, submit it. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. We do not want this to be an event definition. We want this to be a player definition. So type in player DEF. It should be the first chip that comes up. Yeah, we're going to get a player definition board. And what the player definition board does is it basically will activate everything in this chip for all players. So, like I said, besides placing this chip in every one of these guns that we make, we are going to make one chip that does everything for every gun. So what you want to do is we want to edit the chip. No, we don't want to edit the chip. Actually, yeah, we do want to edit the chip. Okay. So go ahead and edit the chip. You can rename this the combat conversion like I said before. And after you name that the combat conversion, we are going to edit the chip. And it doesn't matter if it's active or not. We are going to edit this and place in that event receiver. So we are going to get another event receiver and make sure that we place it in a good spot with the player hit event. And this by itself isn't going to do anything without a connection. So after we in here you can get the projectile hit player. Sorry, it's early in the morning. Can't help but not think too hard early in the morning. Anyway, we are going to move these to the side so it doesn't get in the way. So in the player definition chip, we're going to spawn in a projectile hit player chip, which is different from our projectile hit chip that we made. And now that we spawned in a projectile hit player, what we are going to do is we're going to spawn in our event, but we're not going to use a event receiver definition. We're going to be using a event sender. Now the event sender is going to send the the player hit projectile hit player event to all the guns in the game. So that basically means I can just copy this gun as much as I want and it will damage players. So we are going to get the projectile hit event. And you want to keep the event local. I know that some of you were probably looking at that. But yeah, we're going to keep this local because this affects every player in the room. Local player runs on whatever you are. So local player for me, it's going to show my name. Local player for you is going to show your name. If someone else was in the room, they could look at this as the same time as me and it would show their name because you are always the local player of your own device. It's just like having your own Oculus headset. Now that we have that, we're just going to go ahead and connect this. So connect the firing player to the firing player. We're going to move this over a bit because it looks like I can't really mess with the wires as much. Connect the projectile source with the hit player, body part with body part, damage with damage. And yeah, we basically end up with this, and this makes it so when I fire the gun, or anyone else fires a different gun, it's always going to get the firing or hit player for that player firing their gun on their device. And that is the combat conversion chip. Now that we are done with the custom events, to wrap up this video, I'm just going to show you how to set up the start button. And after we set up the start button, then I'll end this part. And the next part is when we get into the real circuits. So we are just going to set up a start button. You can get a button or a trigger or anything you want to start the game. I'm just going to get a simple text gadget and place it down. You're going to want to scale this up a little bit. So that's a good scale. Then you're going to want to recolor it a certain, well, not a certain color, any color you want, but usually start buttons are green. So I'm just going to make it green. I don't know if you want to make it green too. Sometimes I make it white. And after you make it green, we are going to configure this and change the text to say start game. So start game. Then after we do that, if you want to do any of the spacing or anything, you can. Like you see how this T is touching the A, the R is inside of the T. Sometimes that happens, so you are going to want to go over here to character spacing, space it out a bit, and there you go. Now your letters aren't touching anymore. Now that we have our start game button, let's go ahead and get a now that we have a start game button, let's go ahead and get a interaction volume. And the interaction volume is going to make it so when someone clicks the use button, excuse me, I'm hiccuping a lot. Um Hiccuping a bit. Yeah, so we're just going to want to make sure that the interaction volume is kind of around the border or the edges of our letters. And so it's kind of like a button. You go up to it and it will say use, you can click it, and as you can see it does nothing because it's not connected to nothing, but I will connect it to something. We are going to move the interaction volume thing above the text, just make some room and space. Now we are going to configure the interaction volume, and we are going to want the interaction prompt to say start. You can have it say something completely different, but I'm going to have mine say start game. And then after you do that, now if you hover over it, it's going to say start game. Now if we go back into it, oh, by the way, I didn't say any of this, but make sure that your lock is synced and a lot of other things that I've been making are synced. Because if it's not synced, it's going to create problems because synced makes it so if it's locked for one person, it's locked for everybody. So multiple people can't hit the start button at the same time. And then now that we have that, let's exit the interaction volume, and we are going to make it so when people click on this, it's going to set to lock, and after it sets the lock, it's actually going to it will actually start the game, but we'll start the circuits the next time. You can do the same with an end button. Let me do an end button real quick. Just make sure that you copy this over and make an end game button. Oh, I have the interaction volume. Yeah, and this will be the end game button because we are going to need an end game button. You might not need an end game button unless you're doing something else other than me. But since I am doing a tutorial, I need the button to end the game so I can restart it to show you guys. But anyway, if you liked the video, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next part.